Christmas may have passed, but as some of my friends subscribe to my channel, I just wasn't able to show how I made some of their gifts. One of these dear friends of mine is a keen cook and had requested specifically that I craft a notebook, something that she could write down her recipes in. Now, another detail to keep in mind is that my friend is vegan, and so this time there was no leather-bound cover to be found. But unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen and all variations thereupon, I just wasn't able to show how I crafted it. Wait, what's this? One last Christmas video? So the first step in making a notebook is the paper. So we just need to tear out half the number of pages you want the whole book to be, because these are going to be folded in half, so it's going to be doubled. So if you want a clean cut, the easiest way is to fold along the cut first. And then it tears easy. Do that for as many pages as you need. We've got all the paper we want for the book, but obviously we can't just stick this into a cover, all the pages will fall out, there's no way to bind them. So we're going to need to fold these in half into what's called a signature. So we take a chunk of the paper. I like to take 8 pages, so 1, 2, 7, 8, and that's just a personal preference as to why I like 8. And then we need to fold these in half. Like so, and that will be the dimensions, like so, and that will be the dimensions of the actual notebook. Now what we don't want is for there to be too many pages in this signature, because then it becomes very bulky, and as you can see, because all the pieces of paper are the same length, the ones on the inside are going to be folded at a much sharper angle, and they stick out slightly more. The ones on the outside have a narrower curve to them, and they don't come up quite as high because more of the paper is taken up on the curve. So if you put too much paper into each of these signatures, you can end up with really staggered pages. So I like to keep it about 8. That's a good sort of size for me. And I'll do that with all of the pages for the notebook to create the signatures. So, and that being done, all those pages made up 4 signatures, and the signatures together make something called a text block. So what we need to do now is bind these signatures into the text block. We do that simply with needle and thread, but before we can put the needle and thread through, we need to make a hole. So let's make the holes. 2 ways to do it. You can lay the signatures out and using something sharp, a knife or an awl for if you've got leatherworking stuff, you can poke the holes through in the areas you want them. Or the easier way, which I'm going to use, is a coping saw. The advantage of using a coping saw is this: because I've made all these holes at the same time, I know they all line up. So I don't need to worry about trying to make sure they're the same distance away from each other. Now when you're binding these together, there are many different methods for book binding. I just use the one that sticks the pages together. That's some of my knowledge on the different book binding techniques. It's going to be slightly different to what I've done previously in my other notebook, because on my other one I had a jute cord which ran through the middle that was going to create texture for the spine. I'm not going to do that on this one because that's really more of a leather bound book thing, whereas this is going to be fabric bound, so I've got something else planned for the spine. So what we're going to do is stack up all of the signatures as so, and then just take one of them down, and then when I'm done with this one I'll move the next one along. Okay, so we've got a regular needle and thread. The thread is doubled up just to provide that little bit of extra thickness and strength. we're just going to pass the needle through one of the holes onto the inside, and then as we come towards the end, pass it back through this hole the other way. There we are. That's caught there, and because it's on the spine, no one will see it. Put it around a bit further. That's all going to be sealed away, so no one's going to see that. So we've passed it through one dot, and then it could just come out of that hole, so we're going to pass it in through this hole. See there, that little bit of a loop? That is actually the tail from there. So if you want, you can cut those bits off, which I will do. And then on the inside, push it through the next hole. And just continue all the way along to the end. Then when you reach this end, you just pass it back through the holes that you've just been. So you've come out that one, pass it back through this one, and you do it all the way back along till you've reached the end. On the inside, pass it through this hole. There we go, it's sewn all the way along one side and the other. So now that we've sewn all the way along that signature, I can show you, let's move down slightly. So we've sewn all the way along there, and it's all the way along the inside as well. Place the next signature on top, and then we're just going to pass the thread back in and out through these, but with a slight difference. And then we take the needle and pass it underneath this thread. Linking the top one and the bottom one together. Then go back in through the hole we just came out of. And move along to the next hole. We come out of that one, and then for this one we go around both sides, so under this thread. So if you imagine that this is the bottom of the signature and this is the top, then what I've done is I've come out of this hole, gone underneath the thread at the bottom of the hole and the signature below, then underneath this one, so we're going under the thread at the top end of that hole, and then we pass back through that hole. So we've come out of this hole, wrapped around, back in, out of this hole, wrapped around that one, back in, and we're going to do the same all the way along this signature strip until we get down to the bottom. So as you'll notice, I'm coming to the end of my thread, which, as I haven't even started, I've only just started on the third signature, means I'm not going to be able to finish with this. So to tie this off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass the needle back under itself rather than going through the hole, passing through under. So that's a knot now. Let's take that off. Then I'll refresh my thread and then just start again from that point. So having refreshed my thread now, I'm just going to start where I've left off, pull through this hole, and then I'll just tie off the end and carry on as I have done before. Now as I'm come to the end, I'm just going to tie this off. Pass it under there, through there, and then back through its own loop. And pull tight. And there, that's all the signatures bound together into a text block. Advantage of doing it this way is that everything bends quite nicely and can fall quite flat. Disadvantage, I don't think you can do it on much larger a text block than this. Now in creating the spine and cover, I'm just going to use cardboard. This is an empty cereal box, right, and I'm just going to cut out 3 parts from this. We need cover for this side, a cover for the back, and a strip for the spine. Now we want the covers to overhang the pages slightly so that the pages inside are protected. So I'm just going to mark on the size of the notebook. I'm going to cut out slightly larger than that. So I've marked on directly next to the page. I'm going to cut maybe a couple of millimeters, just a little bit further on, just so the edges of the pages are protected. And when it comes to the spine, I'm going to cut out a spine section, and this is going to be bent and curved to create the shape that I want. And then I'll use the front cover as the template for the back cover. So let's get to cutting this out. Okay, and then with the spine, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to break it and bend it so that it forms a curve. Use my thumb as a template, and this will just protect the spine of the book. Now before we stick the covers and spine on, there's a few things we've got to do. Firstly, I want to add a ribbon so that it can be used to mark the page that my friend's working on. And also we need to do something to make sure this spine is a little bit more stable. So my way of making sure that the spine stays stable is to get some cabbage. And if you're not familiar with it, cabbage is a historical term for scrap material that you've used in your sewing projects. So here is some cabbage. I'm just going to grab fabric shears, roughly measure sort of amount of fabric I need. The ribbon length is going to be half the distance of the book, and you fold over and you go a little bit below the book, a little bit beyond the book. Take our PVA glue, apply the ribbon so that it overhangs on the top or the bottom, whichever way you want to do it. place a cover down, and that's just to stabilise the spine. And for the fabric on the cover, I'm just going to use this blue cotton. It's a denim fabric, 100% cotton. And then I'm using the cover as a template. I'm just going to cut out how much fabric we need. Now, the couple of things to keep in mind is that you want some space between the spine and the covers, just so you've got room for the material to flex as you open and close the book. And we want a slight border around the outside. So with that in place, I'm just going to cut that out, and actually let's move it closer to the edge so I'm not wasting so much fabric. And with my circular cutter, and that will form the cover of the book. Right, now that we've cut out the majority of the fabric, what we need to do is take out the corners Okay, so this is the way it's going to be set up, but I want to make sure these are in the right places, particularly the covers. I'm using the lines on the cutting mat as guidance. You see this line lines up with the bottom, this line lines up with the top. So once I've glued it all down and put the text block in, that should close up and it should all match and be level. All I need to do now is glue on the fabric to the cover and the spine. Then use PVA along flaps. We don't need to worry too much about it looking messy on the inside, because we're going to cut out some blue card and stick that on with this, you've guessed it, PVA glue. Now to attach the cover and the actual book, I'm going to apply yet more PVA. I'm going to take the last page and place it inside the cover. And then place a piece of plastic between that page and the rest of the book, so that the moisture from the PVA doesn't spread onto the rest of the pages and warp them. Now this is basically complete. All we need to do now is press it flat. If you've got a book binder, that would be ideal. If not, take another heavy book, just place it on top and wait for the glue to dry. And there we have it, a recipe notebook to adorn the most beloved of kitchens. All that's left to do now is to wrap it up and post it off.